Upon starting BluePrince, you'll be presented with a singular goal. Find and enter room 46.
The location of the room has been kept a secret.
Eventually, through many trials and tribulations, just one step before possibly succeeding in this quest, you'll come face to face with the 8 doors of the Sanctum. What are these doors doing here? Where do they lead? How do you open them? One thing is clear, they have nothing at all to do with getting to room 46, yet here they are, something new to obsess over. If BluePrince is a multi-layered experience, similar to a game like Animal Well, then reaching room 46 is only layer 1, and opening these Sanctum doors is layer 2, the beginning of the post-game. Because yes, you can open them, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing in this video, which I've divided into chapters, so make sure you take a look at those to see the order I'll be tackling all this in, since it's a lot. I'll be doing everything related to layer 2 in this video, from finding each of the keys, opening each of the doors, solving each of the Mora Jai boxes, to then solving the 8 realms in 8 months puzzle. You can also easily skip around in the video using the chapters if you need to. Just like my previous guides, if you still want to try to solve these on your own but you need a little bit of help, I'll be giving you hints first before then showing the solution. Anyway, we have a lot to cover, even some lore, so let's begin. 8 keys for 8 doors. The very first time you enter room 46, you don't actually get to see the interior at all because touching this door triggers the first ending and credits. Afterwards, making it back into room 46, you'll find several interesting things, such as the former crown of Arinda Ares, stolen by your mother and the other children of Blackwater, and then reset with sapphires, turning it into the crown of the BluePrince, or BluePrince. Your crown. And then, in one of the desk's drawers, a blackmail letter.
This secret room is not as secure as you thought. We have your letters. 8 letters, 8 payments, 100 gold. Instructions to follow.
The former crown of Arinda Ares stolen by your mother? A blackmail letter? What is going on in this place? I know, we're not going to be deep diving into this in this video. This one's going to be long enough. For now, let's just keep it moving. This interesting map showing all of the continents of the world of Mora. 8 realms in 8 months, with 8 push pins. Crests of each of the major family members, Epson, Sinclair, yourself, Jones, and Marigold, your mother's bust mysteriously missing. Last but not least, your very first Sanctum key. Unlocks one of 8 doors. And in the middle of the desk, this note hinting at the locations of the other Sanctum keys. Finding all of these is our next order of business. The first key found here on the furthest rank, which we've obviously just picked up. The second locked tight in the vault of a bank. The third is high up among all the clocks, and the fourth down below beneath all the docks. The 5th key is held by a king on his throne, the 6th in a station left by one of your own. The 7th is major if you draft it quite late. And the last key is waiting behind the last door of 8. Anyway, those are all the hints that the game gives you. At this point, you probably know where most of these are. I think the majority of them are pretty obvious. As for my own hints, the 6th one might be a little tricky. In a station left by one of your own. If you have all of the permanent unlocks, then you probably know where this one is. The 7th and 8th are probably the most tricky. The 7th is major if you draft it quite late. Just keep in mind what major and minor keys are talking about, and then drafting it quite late. And the final one, the last key is waiting behind the last door of 8. It's not the 8 Sanctum doors, I'll tell you that. What other room has 8 doors? Anyway, now that's all the hints that I'm gonna give as well. Using this information, you should be able to find all of them. And now for the next chapter, let's go and get them all. Most of these are pretty easily obtained, however, there are a few that are locked behind puzzles. For those, I will give hints for those puzzles before I then solve them, as is normal for me. Alright, let's go. Obviously, we just picked up that first one, so you can check that one off. And if you're not going to use it right away, just remember that you can always go check it into the code check so you don't lose it. As for the next one, it's locked tight in the vault of a bank. Obviously, the vault. However, in order to be able to access this one, you need to first open 3 other safety deposit boxes, numbers 149, 233, and 304. After you open those throughout your previous misadventures, you'll be able to find deposit box key number 370. Upon opening this safety deposit box, you'll find not only a sizable amount of coins and some gems, but Sanctum key number 2, as well as a note from your mother to your granduncle Herbert.
Uncle, thank you again for all your help. I know I could never hope to repay you, but it pains me to know that I won't even have the chance to try. At any rate, I'm leaving these extra funds behind, as well as the extra passports. It would be too risky if we were searched at the border, and the money will raise too many suspicions. I think we all want a clean start anyway. I know I do. Mary.
Interestingly, the character you play in the game, Simon, this is your mom, of course, and she's saying she needs a clean start. She left you and her husband, your father, behind, and all signs point that she went south to the country or realm of Erasia, or political asylum, pretty much. Because the realm that this game takes place in, the realm that Mount Holly Estate is inside, is Fenares, and it's a bit of a fascist military state. We're gonna get into this much more in that big lore video that I eventually put out, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of background here, just in case you don't know anything at all about the story in this game. There is a lot going on. Anyway, moving on to the third key now. The third is high up among all the clocks. Obviously, this one is inside the clock tower, high up among the clocks. Upon entering this room, you may notice this clock face on the floor, showing a very specific time. That time, as we also learn in other areas of the game, is the sacred hour, 1:30 or 13:30. When you enter, the minute hand is pointing to you and the door, but what is the hour hand pointing at? I'm going to give you a few seconds right now if you want to figure it out for yourselves before I get into it. If you draft this room early enough, which you have plenty of time, the game begins at 8 a.m. and each hour is 7.5 minutes, and you're inside this room when 1:30 strikes. A cutscene will play. Ooh, what's in here? A secret room in between the walls? How cool. Just make absolute certain that you do not leave the clock tower before solving this. If you leave, then this door is going to close and you're going to have to try it again on another day. Ascending the secret staircase, this hallway terminates in a dead end, bedecked with a series of grandfather clocks, each one containing a blue or red memo. And remember, blue memos are always true, red memos are always false, unless written by hand. And the memos are, from left to right, each of these clocks should be set to a different time on blue. 5 of these clocks should be set to a time ending on the hour, also on blue. Set this clock to a time containing all different numbers on red. This clock's neighbors should both be set to a time containing a 7 on blue. This clock should not be set on the hour ending in 00 on red. None of these clocks should be set to times that contain the number 1, 2, 3, or 4 on blue. Ooh, this is an interesting one. This clock should be set to a time that contains the same 3 numbers of another clock here, but in reverse order. Also interesting, and on blue. And the last hint, the clocks are positioned so that their times will go up in ascending order on red, but handwritten. Anyway, here's a little good-mannered pause for you. Those are all the hints. Now, right after this pause, I'm gonna go ahead and solve it all, okay? 3, 2, 1. Let's go. The first clock should be set to 5 o'clock. The second clock, 5:08. The third clock, 5:57. Fourth, 6 o'clock. Next, 7 o'clock. And then 8 o'clock. Now 8:05, being the reverse of 5:08 on the second clock. And finally, 9 o'clock. So altogether, 5, 5:08, 5:57, 6, 7, 8, 8:05, and 9. After inputting all the correct times, a cheeky little hidden compartment will open at the bottom of the center clock, revealing your third Sanctum key. And the fourth key is down below, beneath all the docks. Naturally, the only docks in the game are those around the reservoir, and this key is located beneath them. Using the pump room, if you were to drain the reservoir entirely, then you would very quickly notice that the bottom is completely covered in different colored trunks, each bearing one of several different symbols. They're all locked. Now, you can brute force this if you have a lot of keys and you unlock all of them, or you could just get very lucky like I did on stream and then pick the correct one as your second trunk and get everyone upset because you bypassed the entire puzzle. But I digress. Each of these trunks contains a different colored memo, whether it be green, red, or blue, and these memos function as a series of hints that will lead you eventually to the correct trunk. But what if I was to tell you there's another way to solve this? For your hint, I'll just say that it involves the 2 pieces that you can find of the underground map. The first one is located inside the torch room of the abandoned mines, and the second one is located inside the weight room after smashing the wall with the power hammer. After piecing both halves together, a handwritten message reads, "The 8th angel points to our dreams." Who is the 8th angel? Well, if you take a look inside the chapel, you'll be able to see angels 1 through 7. Rina, Joya, Dauja, Vea, Mila, Lydia, and Orinda, leaving one final angel, the angel of death, Draxus. Where would Draxus be pointing the way? Down in the catacombs, of course. The catacombs being a very suspicious place, there is of course a secret passage accessed by interacting with all of the statues of the angels in the order that they're shown in the chapel, and the order that I showed in this video. After passing through the hidden door, you'll find the statue of Draxus, which you can interact with in order to open the door to the reservoir chamber. Well, if you pay very close attention to when you interact with this statue, you should see that when he lowers his arm, the very tip of his scythe points at something on the 3rd piece of the map. That something happens to be the largest rock formation inside the reservoir, behind which is this crescent moon adorned black trunk right here, inside of which, of course, are your dreams. The next Sanctum key. This box contained a Sanctum key. Oh, thank you so much. That's the most useful memo in the entire game. Refreshingly, after the previous 2, this one is quite simple. The 5th key is held by a king on his throne. Located inside the throne room, not on the throne itself surprisingly, but on this table right next to the large king chess piece. And now for that tricky 6th key in a station left by one of your own. Well, we can see in the 5th Alzara prophecy that we are waiting in a station. A train station. That train station being, naturally, the underground safe house, the entrance of which is also located in the reservoir. And we can access it, of course, by using the pump room to first drain the water level of the reservoir by 1, allowing us to take the boat from one side to the other, and then using the pump room again to drain the water level to 6, which allows us to then take the boat through a tunnel to the entrance of the safe house, where you can then find the next Sanctum key on top of this crate, along with another letter from your mom. It has now been 6 months. 6 months of living in this air-choked cavern of boredom and dread. 6 months since we said our silent goodbyes to our families. 6 months of planning, 6 months of rehearsals, 6 months of heartache, but no regrets. Everyone who knows me intimately thinks I have left the country. Everyone else assumes me dead. And maybe that's all that is left for us. The long walk and steps leading up to the gallows. A steep price to pay for ideals, I concede, but a price that somehow seems cheaper and less cruel than another 2 fortnights hunkered down here beneath the sand and soot. And yet, as I write this, I have never felt so close to the sky and my dreams. Tomorrow, we will reclaim our birthright. Tomorrow, the crown of Orinda will finally return to Oris. The first step taken is half the journey. May the black shores guide us. Mary, Yeah, they don't call it BluePrince for nothing. Other than being just an amazing game, the game is actually very blue and melancholy. However, moving on to the next key. The 7th is major if you draft it quite late. Major keys and minor keys have to do with music, so this key is actually located inside the music room. We can see on its picture in the Mount Holly directory, 1 major key, 1 minor key. The music room always contains one of each of these. Minor keys are just ordinary keys, and the major keys are the special keys throughout the game, like the secret garden key, vault keys, etc. This one can be somewhat tricky for people to obtain, but by late, it means later into your run, late in the day. It doesn't need to be nighttime or anything like that. When I got this for the first time on stream, this is where I drafted my music room, on rank 6 in the middle of the manor. But I had already accessed rank 9 and the antechamber, and it was kind of towards the end of a fairly long day. Anyway, if you meet these prerequisites, then the major key that you'll find in the music room will be the Sanctum key. And now, the 8th and final key. The last key is waiting behind the last door of 8. Which room has 8 doors? Well, the Mechanarium has 1 door for each mechanical room in your house, for a possible total of 8 doors. However, you need to make sure you draft enough mechanical rooms. Otherwise, you might miss that 8th and final door, behind which the Sanctum key will rest. There is an optimized strategy you can employ, though, by drafting the Mechanarium in the middle of a bunch of other rooms, where the cardinal direction doors are going to be blocked. With this strategy, you only need 4 mechanical rooms to get all 8 doors in the Mechanarium. Mechanical rooms being the Mechanarium itself, the utility closet, boiler room, pump room, security, workshop, laboratory, and the electric eel upgrade to the aquarium. With enough mechanical rooms first drafted, we then draft the Mechanarium, and behind that final diagonal door is a podium with the 8th and final Sanctum key. Congratulations. Now, let's open all the doors, and I have to teach you about sigils. Beyond the doors. If you're having trouble solving the sigil puzzles, then all of the information you need that the game itself gives you should be right here in this one chapter. And then in the next chapter, we'll be opening all of the Sanctum doors and solving everything inside. And more. Anyway, what are sigils? Well, probably the first time you hear anything at all about them in the game is after accessing the precipice. At the end of this cliffside tunnel, you'll find an old copy of a book called Realm and something. Although it's in beat-up shape and with many ripped pages, you could still glean that a sigil is basically like the flag of the particular countries or realms of Mora, the world this game takes place on. But a lot of the information is incomplete because of the ripped pages, so we have to obtain a new copy of this book. And we obviously do that in the bookshop. Realm and Rune for 20 gold. After purchasing it, we have to then check it out at the library. And here we are. Realm and Rune. You can tell I checked it out quite a bit. I'm just gonna scan through it, so pause the video if you need to, but this book itself contains a good chunk of the information we're gonna need, especially what each piece of a sigil is. The core, representing each realm itself, though there are 3 missing from this book. The rays, representing the primary transportation methods of each realm. The style of ray, representing the weather of the realm. The moats, representing the type of society. And the border, representing the color of the flags flown by that realm. With an example at the end of Fenares. There's also another book you should check out, The History of Arindia by Caleb Manning. This will give you a little bit more information about a couple other realms. And now, another gigantic source of information for the realms, in a tiny package, is postage stamps. After unlocking the ability to conduct more advanced experiments, which is one of the things I covered in this video here, you may set up any number of triggers to then deliver a letter to the mailroom. This will allow you to obtain 16 different letters in the mailroom, most of which bear a different stamp. There's also a letter with a stamp on it in the entrance hall after reaching room 46 and inheriting the manor, as well as one inside the freezer. inside the freezer, frozen in a chunk of ice, requiring you to first defrost it. And of course, postage stamps being small, you're going to want to look at them with a magnifying glass. If you do, they will all be collected in one place inside the scrapbook upstairs in the library. And then by examining these, you'll be able to pull off quite a bit of information from them, such as Eraja, violet, and it looks like it's raining, nuance, green, aerial transportation, Mora Jai, blue or white, and sea travel. This unnamed place that's mountainous and snowing, although you do get the core on the upper left of the stamp. Fen Aries, red and foggy. Orinda Aries, black. Arc Aries, stormy and industrial. And Vera, giant turtles. On a quick side note, if the developer's next game doesn't have us riding around on giant turtles hopping from island to island like the game Isles of Sea and Sky, then that's a huge missed opportunity and I'm gonna be sad. But anyway, that's all the information from the stamps. Next, let's go to school. In first grade, we learn about colors, specifically the colors of broccoli, pumpkins, grapes. Oh, and look at that. The flags of 3 different realms along with their sigil cores. Of course, you're gonna have to use each student's worksheets to figure it out for yourselves using process of elimination, but it's fairly simple. But it's really grade 4 geography class where we learn a little bit more about the world. Using the students' worksheets in this classroom, we can match each realm with its corresponding landmass and also sigil core. And then, of course, there are the 2 gigantic, extremely detailed maps at the front of the classroom that show you both large continents of the world of Mora, Orindia and Moravin. Obviously, using all this information is going to be vital for solving the puzzle that I showed in the beginning of this video inside room 46, 8 realms in 8 months, which is what we're going to be solving at the very end of this video, but just keep this in mind. Once finishing grades 1 through 5 and finally making it to middle school, we finally have a history lesson. Each of the slides show important information for the realms. The 4th slide shows the railway being deconstructed, so that shows the old mode of transportation for Orinda Aries. And then, of course, the final slide, among other things, shows the green zeppelin or airship bearing the green flag. Now, we're almost finished gathering all the information we're going to need in order to piece together the sigils of the realms. But before that, there's an interesting side quest of sorts we need to solve. Have you ever noticed that the aquariums contain small versions of several of the rooms of the manor? For a closer look, let's drain the aquariums entirely. After doing so, we can now very easily see an X marks the spot in front of the patio's barbecue, as well as another one in front of this washing machine in the laundry room, and finally, turning around in order to look at the small version of the archives, this tiny arrow pointing at a filing cabinet. If you want to discover these for yourselves, then go ahead and pause the video now. Obviously, X marks the spot means we probably have to dig in these locations. Shovel in hand, yep. Sure enough, we dig in front of the washing machine to find a long-buried file cabinet key. Heading to the archives, we can now interact with and unlock and open one of the filing cabinets, inside of which is a lore bomb of a binder containing a story about the Fen uprising against Orinda Aries. I'm not going to read all of this out loud. You can pause the video if you want to read it. I definitely recommend so, but I will definitely be talking about all of this in great depth again in that eventual lore video. Now, war is interesting and all, but it's really this article right here that's the zinger. The Princess Caitlin Jari, born in exile. Why is this hidden in here in a binder locked in a filing cabinet whose key is buried under the floor of the laundry room? At the very end of the binder is this scrap of paper showing the sigil core, weather, and society type of Eraja. An hourglass, rain, and a poetic society. Now, we can also dig up a key in front of the barbecue in the patio. This is a separate key, allowing you to open another filing cabinet. Inside this one, we find a valuable upgrade disc, as well as our mother's birth certificate. Why would this be here? And does it have anything at all to do with the newspaper articles in the other filing cabinet? Caitlin Jari, a princess in exile. Huh. Of course, there's also the entire sigil for Ares at the top right of the birth certificate. All right, now those are the main locations where we find information on sigils, but there are a lot of other little scraps of information around in various rooms. The first one of which is inside the clock tower. Climbing the stairs at the very top, you'll find this piece of a tablet bearing the floral motes of the Eurasian sigil. This one also shows the border. And now you have just about all of it. Looking at the piece of paper next to this tablet, southward I see a swan, ashen like sands of the shore, carried by westwardly winds, rogue like the moon of the north. Eastward I see a crow, dark are the days coming forth, with the Orinda Ares sigil core at the bottom. Other than giving us the clue westwardly winds, this poem might actually be a hint for an entirely separate puzzle that is, as of yet, unsolved. But now, moving on, in the Lost and Found, we can find another sigil tablet. This one showing wavy lines, motes that I just call pepperonis, I'm sorry. And then the border. We should already have this entire sigil at this point, but if you're inside the vault and you open a safety deposit box, any one of the passports actually has the Ares sigil on the front. Our next sigil can be found inside the secret garden. If you build the power hammer with the sledgehammer, battery pack, and broken lever, you can smash this indented brick wall on the right. On the other side is a third wheel that now allows you to turn all 3 of the weather vanes. Doing so and having them all point to the south will reveal the entire sigil for Orinda Ares, which can also, of course, be seen in its entirety hanging on the wall of the throne room. Finally, back down in the catacombs, after interacting with Draxus's statue and passing through the now open passageway, we can access this flame room of the abandoned mine. You can also access this by draining the fountain entirely if you would like. And if you have a burning glass or a torch, then you can light all the candles in order to have this room connect to the precipice, which is another handy way of getting from the surface to the underground and vice versa. But this is just the third location where you can find the entire sigil for Orinda Ares, and also an upgrade disc. Anyway, now that is all the information that you're going to need to piece together the sigils for the 8 realms. And now, in the next chapter, it's time to finally open all of the Sanctum doors and solve everything inside. Let's go. All right, we're just going to go straight into this, beginning with the door on the left, Orinda Ares, and you get to see all of my amazing art during this process. These are the sigils as I drew them in my notes using my PureRef program that I use. Hey, don't make fun of me. Anyway, let's go. Opening the first door into the Orinda Ares Sanctum Chamber. Again, this is what the sigil looks like in all. Now, let me just quickly explain what each piece of this contraption does before we begin. The topmost dial next to the red button will change the motes for the society type. The second dial down will change the rays or dividing lines for the realm's weather. The third dial will select the primary mode of transportation for the realm, changing the number of motes and rays. The fourth large dial at the bottom will change the design of the outer border representing the realm's color. And finally, the red button on top can be pressed to input your selection to see if you have the correct sigil pattern. Anyway, that's all there is to it. Let's solve these. All right, we will begin by rotating the top dial 3 times until the motes look sort of like little buildings representing metropolitan society. And then we're going to rotate the second dial once, and then the third dial once, twice, 3 times, so that there are 3 rays, 2 pointing upwards in either direction diagonally and 1 pointing straight down. And then finally we'll rotate the bottom dial 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 times, so that the outer border looks like this, representing black. Now go ahead and push that red button, and the entire contraption will lower into the floor as a bridge extends to the platform you're on, allowing you to progress forward. Let's head to the left first. We see a picture of the old-timey Orindian countryside, figurines of the 3 royal children, Orinda herself, the paragon of royalty, and a postcard. 8 realms in 8 months. The objective was simple enough, but in what order, what route, and where to start?
Questions like these are the ones I tend to ignore, as planning has never been my strong suit. Well then, in the tame spirit of adventure, I have departed, forsaking both map and plan. And as it happens, the road has taken me south. It seems fitting to begin the journey by visiting a fragment of the Old Kingdom, a landmark as black in realm as it is in name, and a story I feel closely connected to. Herbert.
And of course, each and every one of these Sanctum chambers has a Mora Jai puzzle box on the other side over here. However, we're gonna wait until the next chapter to solve all of these together in one go. For now, let's just move on to the next sigil puzzle. It's time to open the door to Fen Ares. This is what the entire sigil is supposed to look like, something like this. And in order to solve this puzzle, we want to turn the first dial twice for Marshall, and then the second dial once for Foggy, the third dial once for roads and carriages, and the large bottom fourth dial 7 times for Red. Now pushing that button should allow us to pass. On this side we'll see the red flags and sigil core representing Fen Ares, the royal palace of Fen, and a postcard. I'm actually writing this last postcard sitting at my desk at home. I suppose I should put forth the extra effort and drop it in the mail for consistency, but I am tempted to save the postmaster a trip, as it will just wind up here once again to join the other 7, which I am pleased to report were all waiting for me on my desk, safe as can be. Flipping through them has reminded me of the many friends I made and lessons learned along the way, and as I look back, one truth shines brighter than the others. Air travel is much better than sea travel. Herbert. P.S. Remind Anne to replace the books I lost. Now let's open the Arc Ares door. The entire sigil looks like this. To get there, we want to rotate the first dial 5 times for an industrial society. The second dial 3 times for stormy, looks like lightning. The third dial 3 times for railway. And the bottom 4th dial 3 more times for yellow. Taking a left, we can see the scene of a power plant in the middle of the Stormy Mountains. An interesting building model and musical instrument, and another postcard.
We arrived here after a few days of sailing, and it made me realize how much more convenient it would have been in the old days when the railway tracks extended all the way north. Arc Ares is a destination with which I am well acquainted, having traveled here countless times on business for Cinca. This time, however, I will avoid the familiar towns and factories and will instead trek along the northern coast, an area with which I am wholly unfamiliar. Herbert.
And now for the Eurasian door. This is what the entire sigil is supposed to look like, give or take. So we'll have to rotate the top dial 7 times for Poetic Society, the second dial twice for Rainy, the third dial 3 times for Railway, yet again, and the fourth dial 3 times for Violet. Crossing to the left, we'll see a romantic image of a train crossing a tranquil bridge over untroubled waters, with an Eurasian house, a feathered cap, and another postcard.
I was a little disappointed that there has not been a drop of rain during my time here, as every Eurasian story I've ever heard has begun with rain. I suppose the anecdotes I make on this trip will have to do without that flavorful setting. However, even without the rain, the puddles and ponds that dot the countryside make this place feel different than home. Lorja Yena, Ajlor Lun, Herbert.
Our next door is the Korarika door. This is what the sigil looks like, and we need to rotate the first dial 4 times for an academic society, the second dial 5 times for snow, the third dial 1 time for roads and carriages, and the final dial 4 times for orange. Now we see an image of a quaint little town amidst the snowy mountains, and a furnace and a tree.
There have been fewer and fewer opportunities the further we travel up into the mountains to attend to my correspondence, and I find myself regretting having brought so many books, as this is the first realm I have visited without porters. Here, every person is expected to carry their own belongings, and if you can't, You throw away that which is expendable. It's looking like I'll be bringing back less souvenirs than I had planned. I never expected to appreciate the cold, but the frigid weather here is a welcome relief coming from the sweltering shores of Vera. Herbert. P.S. I ended up forsaking all but one of my books.
And now for the door to Mora Jai. The Mora Jai. This is what the sigil looks like, and this is also the easiest puzzle to solve. Just turn the first dial once, and the last dial once. That's it. Literally, that's it. Crossing to the other side, we see a quaint and fertile countryside with a really cool tower model and some kind of a squash and what looks like another puzzle box. This one you can't interact with, though. I've tried.
After a short sea voyage, we arrived on the main island of Mora Jai last night in good spirits. The people here are belligerent in their politeness, and after spending a full day among the Jorael, I am just as afraid of eating another dish as I am of rejecting their offers. I may try to sneak away tomorrow and spend some time alone with my books, as I have noticed that each realm I have visited has one thing in common. They each have been short on solitude. Herbert.
The penultimate door is the door to the Vera Sanctum chamber. This is what Vera's sigil looks like, and in order to solve the puzzle, we need to turn the top dial 6 times for a spiritual society, the second dial 4 times for heat, the third dial 6 times for turtleback transportation, and the fourth dial 3 times for pink. And then we can see pink flags on the beach with a yurt, and one of those aforementioned giant turtles with a saddle on its back.
Despite my prejudice against Mother Nature, I own that I have deeply loved my time here at Vera. The memories of the youthful trip I took here with my brother have been relentless, and as I have gotten older, I find less and less occasion to recollect on such trivial pleasures. One thing I do remember vividly, which has not lost a single speck of charm, are the famous turtles. Each visitor of Vera, upon arriving, is lent one of these hard-shell friends for their duration of their stay, to serve as both steed, guide, and companion. I am still under the spell of island life, even if the weather here is much more severe than it was on Mora Jai. Herbert.
And now the final door, Nuance. This is what the complete sigil looks like, and to get there, we need to rotate the first dial 2 times for Marshall, the second dial 6 times for Westwardly Winds, the third dial 4 times for aviation, all of those dirigibles, and the final dial 4 times for green. Crossing the bridge, we can see the picture. It looks straight out of science fiction. Herbert called Nuance his favorite of the realms, and I have to agree, that place looks amazing, being a city boy myself. These airships flying all over the place and the giant futuristic looking buildings. Let's hear it from Herbert.
By far my favorite realm I have visited during this trip, but I have always had a penchant for technology and am less moved by the beauty of nature than others. The soot-filled streets and soaring skyscrapers here are just as stirring to me as the mountains of Kororika and the beaches of Mora Jai. Perhaps I am just letting my childhood love of dirigiblocks compromise my objectivity. From the shops I have visited, it seems the series is just as popular here as it is back home. Speaking of home, as I look across the Eastern Sea, I can almost see its shores. I never thought that I would miss the sight of red flags. Herbert.
And now that you've opened all of the doors and solved all of the sigil puzzles within, the next time you head down to the Inner Sanctum, you'll find a prize. The Trophy of Sigils. Congratulations. Now let's open all those Mora Jai boxes. Mora Jai puzzles. Alright, if you're having trouble opening any of these Mora Jai puzzle boxes, here are all of the solutions from left to right, beginning with Orinda Aries. I'm not going to commentate during any of these, so you could just enjoy the vibes and hopefully be able to follow along. On that end, I want to apologize in advance if I did end up moving a little bit too fast during some of these. Alright, let's go. Orinda Aries. Ben Aries. Arc Aries. Iraja. Kororika. Mora Jai. Vera. And Nuance. 8 realms in 8 months. Alright, at last, now let's return to room 46 and solve the 8 realms in 8 months puzzle. For this, we obviously have to use the postcards from Herbert we found in the 8 Sanctum chambers in order to fully map out his route on this map using the pushpins. So I'm just going to show you all 8 postcards in the order that we found them first. So if you want to try to solve this for yourselves using the information on the postcards, here's your chance. And then right after this, I'll give you a quick break, and then I'm going to go into it and just solve it. Alright, so Herbert began his long journey right here in Fen Ares or Orinda Ares, and then he went south to Iraja, before then going all the way north to Arc Ares, and then across the sea to Mora Jai, then down south to the Turtle Islands of Vera, and then to the snowy mountains of Kororika, before heading back across the water to the metropolises of Nuance, and then finally ending the trip back here in Fen Ares. As soon as all the pushpins are in, the entire map slides inwards, revealing both the deed to the house from Lord Arthur Clementine to Lady Orave of Trinsdale, your great-grandmother, who we'll talk about a lot in an upcoming video soon enough. So now, with this piece of paper in your hand, you are the legitimate owner of Mount Holly Estate. Congratulations. It's irrefutable. Probably. And then to go along with the land deed, we have...
I, Herbert S. Sinclair of the Mount Holly Estate at Reddington.
The last will and testament of Herbert S. Sinclair, your great-uncle. We heard some of this during the intro to the game, but importantly, of course, there's another puzzle hidden in here for you. Of course there is. I bequeath 8 stone statues, sculpted in the likeness of the 8 Aegeran angels, Orinda, Lydia, Rena, Joya, Dauja, Vea, Mila, and Draxus. There has been much debate over their natural numeric order. Interesting. But on the next page, finally, to you, Simon P. Jones,
I give and bequeath to my grandnephew, Simon P. Jones, son of my dear niece, Mary Matthew, all of my right, title, and interest in and to the house and land which I own near Mount Holly.
Not only has the house been bequeathed to you, but the original manuscripts of your mother's works, Red Prince and A New Clue, and of course the hint in bold beneath, in the natural order of things. Even though there has been much debate over their natural numeric order. Interesting.
In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand this 18th day of March, 1993. Herbert S. Sinclair.
It looks like we have one last trip down to the catacombs today. The natural order of things is actually the order that Herbert listed these statues in the will. Orinda, Lydia, Rina, Joya, Dauja, Vea, Mila, and Draxus. So, if we then interact with the statues in that order, the natural order, the wall behind Draxus begins to slide down, revealing a hidden chamber with 2 stone podiums containing the original manuscripts for Red Prince and A New Clue, which both contain more clues. Of course they do. But we're getting a little bit long-winded now at almost an hour long in this video, so pay attention to them. The contents of these shall be used in another video coming very soon. I want to thank you all very, very much. This video was an absolute beast to tackle, especially for a variety of reasons. I hope it helped you, one way or another, whether you use it as a guide or just for entertainment. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you soon.
I think we all want a clean start anyway. I know I do. From my son, that little monster. Mary.